You're listening to the Black Eagles podcast.
Ahmet Dursun Sergen aldı. Sergen Bülent yan yana. Sergen Bülent. Sergen. Yanında Tümer var. Tümer'e doğru at. Tümer gitti. Tümer topu aldı. Sergen aldı. Gol! Gol! Gol! Sergen attı. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi. Sergen attı. Şampiyonluk geldi.
İbrahim'in pası. Zuma. Şimdi Ahmet. İkinci gole gidiyor Beşiktaş. Ahmet.
Welcome back, everybody. Episode 176 of the Black Eagles podcast. I'm your host, Sinan, live from New York City, as per usual. Sweltering hot New York City. A heat wave has sent. We got warnings about using electricity today, so I hope everyone's staying cool in the heat. But yeah, without further ado, I'm just going to cut right back into my discussion with Kaan. Kaan Bayazit, of course. Everyone will recognize him who listens to this podcast. And of course, again, stay tuned after the interview, and I will sort of segue it, obviously, so I'll prepare you for it. But Evran, the Akman himself, will be returning to give us a bit of a transfer update. No huge news, but I'll leave that for him to tell you about. But yeah, so without any further ado, I reintroduce you to Kaan Bayazit, and we cut right back in where we're starting to talk about conspiracy theories that our rivals have about our championship season. I'll leave it at that.
Anyone who looked at Beşiktaş this season and isn't completely biased about their love for Galatasaray or whatever, I think they would say the same thing, because it was clear that we were just going towards. We were like a freight train that could almost not be derailed anymore, and it required an extreme amount of circumstances with those injuries to even allow our rivals a chance. And if you can see some of the conspiracy theories then
I was going to say, let's maybe briefly address that, because it's coming up now, all this the Hatay score, blah blah. What you're mentioning now is very important, because I think for people who forget where we were at the time, we had a huge lead at that point, we were sailing, we were coasting. So we had a goal differential advantage. We had a points advantage, in the table. The idea that we would need the 7 goals against Hatay to win would have been completely foreign to us.
We went into the match against Hatay with a 5-goal differential over Galatasaray. I saw you argue with that brain dead Galatasaray fan on Twitter. My God, I just could. I mean, usually I would just ignore these people, but I couldn't help myself and just threw some facts at him with some screenshots to support it, and he didn't even bother to reply.
I know.
People like that, I don't know what people like that do. I wonder, do they believe their own garbage, or did they just read all that from some other idiots and then didn't bother to actually fact check it? I don't know which one of the two it is. I
think it's probably a combination of the two, and I think you kind of have to be an idiot to find number 2, to be okay with number 2 in your life. But I am so astounded by how quickly people have forgotten the actual reality. I was literally getting trolled by Galatasaray fans in the weeks prior, haha, at least we made you uncomfortable. With the assumption being, we're gonna win. We had a huge advantage. You made us ready. And so that turned into all these conspiracies. So how could they have gone from knowing we were going to win the title and we got you a little bit, to suddenly no, it was all plotted and schemed.
If we're going to talk about people, teams padding their goal differential, let's talk about the team that won 1-4 away in Denizli and got 4 penalties. Come on. I'm not saying the penalties weren't penalties, but if you're gonna talk about the way Bifung or whatever the freak his name was defended, then let's talk about the way Denizlispor gave away those penalties. Come on. And much more plausible, by the way, that a team who are already relegated, a defender of a team who was already relegated, decided to earn some pocket money to give away a couple of stat padding penalties. You know, so, I mean, I could make up theories. Like, I'm not gonna. I mean, I just did, I guess. But like,
I mean, dude, if you really want to talk about a conspiracy, first of all, we can talk about Fatih Karagümrük. But before that, even,
I mean,
we actually talk about Denizlispor, and I don't mean us against it, but I'm talking about them. I don't know if you recall, but Rodallega had a goal taken away that was complete nonsense, and then they had another goal added, like a penalty added. That was completely questionable.
Missed
and then
the penalty, got the retake. Didn't they get to retake a penalty twice?
And Rodallega scored one, and they made him do a retake, and then he missed, I think, right? I don't know if that's exactly right.
I just remember it was a shit show. And it's like one of those things. Like, even at that stage, they were padding their goal differential because what if? But let's be honest. Until Fatih Karagümrük actually beat us, they had like almost no hope.
And just like listen to the absurdity of this. Like, we need 7 goals against Hatay, so we're going to buy it because we feel like we might draw against Sivas, lose against Galatasaray, lose against Fatih Karagümrük. Like, we're planning to do all of that after a dominant season where we had no trouble.
Let's not forget we had to lose with 2 goals or more from Galatasaray. Yeah. Like, even if they beat us, like, the chance of them beating us by 2 goals or more was quite slim, and they ended up doing it. Yeah, let's not forget how their third goal literally got scored after a goal kick was given that was never a goal kick, that was clearly to everyone, to blind people in the stands to see that ball was in play, and they got a goal kick for that, and they literally scored 30 seconds after that from that goal kick. Like, I'm not defending on their goal, but the way their goal came about, like, it's, you know, like, and let's not forget, like, their penalty as well. I was like, at the time, I thought, okay, this is compensation because our penalty was kind of soft and their penalty now is soft too. But looking back at it, looking at the actual replays, Dunk planted his studs on Atiba's foot. It's a stonewall penalty. And their penalty fall happens before the whistle. It is, according to the rule book, not a penalty. Referee is not allowed to give a penalty there. He has to let the free kick be retaken because the fall happened before the free kick. The rules stipulate caution the player and free kick has to be retaken. So VAR should have interjected there because there was a rules violation. You know, I'm just saying, like at the end of the day, they deserved to beat us. They did. They were better, but it did, like, their penalty and their third goal all had referee help. I mean, you know, I mean, and that can happen. There's matches like that happen, but like, there's a lot of things that had to happen, had to go their way for them to even have a chance, and those things went their way. But at the end of the day,
well, and look, here's another way of thinking. Like, let me just piggyback on what you're saying. What you're implying, though, and I think this is the important point, for them, for all of those things to go their way, and whether you're willing to say the referees, quote unquote, helped them or not, you don't really have to say that, because what we can definitely say is they definitely didn't work against them when they helped or didn't, give them those sort of lucky calls. So if there was a grand conspiracy against Galatasaray, every single one of those half and half calls would have gone against them rather than them all going for Galatasaray, right? So the whole conspiracy thing, you can pretty much put that in the garbage.
Their conspiracy is that we bribed Hatay to concede 7, right? Yeah. Well, I think Hatay got smacked around 6-0 earlier in the season by someone else as well. Like, it's like Hatay played a great season, don't get me wrong, they certainly did, but it's not like they had those outshooters before. And like,
especially going in the back, right? They had some weaknesses in the back. Speaking of the back, let's talk about how Bilong, who had been called up to his national side for 2 to 3 weeks prior to our match.
So their theory was, the conspiracy theory was like, Bilong was basically pressured into making mistakes and having Beşiktaş score a lot of goals by Abubakar,
who by the way signed the contract with Al Nassr probably already and wasn't coming back.
Who are both Cameroon Abubakar obviously Cameroon international, and Bilong being an aspiring Cameroon international, and the Galatasaray fan theory is that Abubakar pressured him to basically, allow a lot of goals against us, so that Bilong would get called up to the national team for the first time in his career. So usually when you do a transaction, like you have let's say you're selling a very valuable Beşiktaş shirt. Mm-hmm. Like, are you going to give me that shirt? Are you going to send it to me by mail and let me pay later? No, right? Like, I pay first. That's how it works, right? That's how that sort of a transaction works. Yeah. So why did Bilong get called up to the Cameroon national team weeks prior to our match during the international break?
And which adds even more scheduling conflicts with the notion that we knew we were going to drop all those points. Now, not just before the Hatay match, which already is ridiculous based on what we already said, but now go 3 weeks earlier and probably 5 matches because we were playing twice a week. When the cup, everything was absolutely in our hands. We had a huge goal differential advantage, everything going our way at that point. So for us to, or for Abubakar no less, who had already probably signed for Al Nassr to make trillions of dollars on half a knee, for him to have done it at that point, I mean, everything about it is so farcical that it's just nonsense.
Yeah, I mean, it's people grasping at straws, right? Let's not forget we also beat Rizespor earlier in the season 6-0. We beat them 2-0 at home. We beat Fenerbahce away. There's not a single team. Only Antalyaspor, the only club we didn't beat during the season, and we beat them in the cup final. We beat everyone, literally everyone. We had a fantastic season. If it wasn't for the injuries we had, we would have been champions with 10 points clear, probably. Because that's where it was headed prior to. We lost both our strikers. We had 2 strikers, we lost them both in the time span of a week. Yeah. So it's one of those things if you want to believe it, sure, go ahead, but at the end of the day, we're the champs.
Exactly. It's not going to get you anywhere. You're not going to rewrite history with this.
Yeah, go suck a lollipop, man.
Yeah. It is. It's expected, right? You know that the petty rivals are going to come up with all these sort of lame excuses. It's a little unfortunate how hypocritical they are. Given all the sort of trash they were talking coming into those final matches and the sort of expectation they had that we were going to win regardless, and then for it all to be because of a conspiracy, just because they happened to have made it close, in the last 2 weeks, basically.
Yeah, it's one of those things as well. One of the things they say, Rosier should have gotten 20,000 red cards this season. And, I can see where they're coming from. If I was a Fenerbahce or a Galatasaray fan, I probably, not towards the end of the season, because he was really disciplined. But early on in the season, the first half of the season, I'll just put it that way, there was a lot of situations where he was either already on a yellow card or something, and then he made a tackle where he could have definitely gotten a second yellow. And I will not say that's not true. It's definitely true. And I accept that criticism. But those same people have Marcao on their team, Luis Gustavo on their team, Serdar Aziz on their team. And those players get away with the exact same shit, if not worse. Marcao had a match, I don't remember which game it was, but he was on a yellow and he elbowed a guy. And it's not even come on.
Serdar Aziz is like a kamikaze bomber half of the time.
Serdar Aziz. And the thing is, Rosier, I don't think he's a malicious guy. I don't have the impression that he's a malicious player. He's a hothead for sure. He's one of those players that will go into a tackle way too drastic a little bit from time to time, but he's not a malicious guy. He's not out there to hurt people. There's a difference between a stiff tackle and like elbowing someone on purpose or stepping on their heels on purpose with your studs like Ryan Donk did against Atiba in the match. And I'm not talking about the penalty, I'm talking before the penalty. He should have gotten sent off with a direct red card for that. That was at 0-0, by the way. Those types of things, the things that Marcao tends to do from time to time, like, and Serdar
cross that line.
And Gustavo.
It's definitely Serdar Aziz.
Yeah, I mean, like, and Souza has his mean streak too. Don't get like, I'll not be, you know, he definitely has his main streak, but it's like one of those things. Like, it's easy to say Rosier this, Rosier that, but look at your own team as well. You had situations, it's very comparable, similar, like, and you didn't get sent off. And then they point towards like Mustafa Mohamed getting a red card and getting sent off for an elbow. You know, which was a harsh. I'll give them that.
Let's talk about Kyle Ahrens then.
Yeah,
we're
exactly.
talking about random elbow cards.
Red card against Fenerbahce. How was that not equally harsh, if not harsher?
He was literally punished because he was a foot taller than that dude. You know, like he just put his arm back, and that his head just happened to be a foot lower than Kyle Ahrens.
Won 3 matches this season, 10 versus 11, where Beşiktaş were the team going down to 10 men. Fenerbahce away, Denizlispor at home, and Konyaspor at home. And I don't know if there's any more, but those 3, we went down to 10 men and won despite the red card. And in all 3 those games, we didn't just get the red card at the end or anything stupid like that. We got, like, I think Souza against Denizli got sent off first half. Then we had the red card for Ensakala against Konya, was early in the first half. And the red card for Laren against Fenerbahce away was early in the second half. So all 3 of those matches we played with a man down for a significant part of the match and still won. And that's just one of those things that shows you the team, that a team is up to the challenge to win the title. And Fenerbahce and Galatasaray, I don't think either of them won a single game where they went down to 10 men. I might be wrong, correct me if I am, but I'm pretty sure that's the case this season. And even if it's not, they definitely didn't win 3.
No, I mean that's exceptional. I was unaware of that stat. That's amazing. Yeah. And there are so many times I remember, you know, I on Instagram I always make these little comments after games, sort of branding out my feelings, and you know, on the Black Eagles podcast account, and. I can't even remember how many times I wrote, like, this is one of those sort of gritty wins that you need for a championship, you know, and like that was before we knew we were going to win it, obviously. So it definitely you had a number of those matches where you felt like, dang, like I can't believe we probably didn't deserve that one, but it felt like a big one because, you know, you always need those points. No, I mean, there's so many angles to point to that you could really just like put a hole in their sort of ridiculous conspiracy theories about the year. But I don't really want to overdo it because I don't want to give them too much credit, you know, like
too much airtime.
Yeah, exactly. It's garbage, and especially for like fans of clubs who have definitely done the stuff that they're trying to accuse us of. Need I remind Galatasaray fans about their result against Samsunspor, and was it '94? I mean, because we're showing our age with that reference, perhaps, but
I'm kind of 1992. But there's also one of those folklore mysteries. Like, I obviously wasn't cognitively aware of that season because I was like 4 at the time. But there's also like a lot of like myths about that. Like at the end of the season, they still had a healthy goal differential lead over us. So. I know you would have to ask somebody who was actually there watching the season what exactly went down there. I do know that the Ankaragücü goalkeeper admitted to taking a bribe to concede a lot of goals. But at the end of the day, if you look at the league table that season, Galatasaray didn't need those 8 goals. So I'm not sure exactly. I mean, that's one of those stories, but I don't know. And I also think we beat Ankaragücü that season 6-0, by the way. So I don't know. It's something you'd have to ask somebody who is like 20 years older than I am.
Yeah, exactly. So at least we're not that old, but no, I mean, I just, you know, like we all have strong feelings about our rivals, but I have not in recent years, except maybe that Samson year, but not recently at all. I have not blamed our opponents' victories on too much nonsense. And of course, there's always some ref stuff that we'll complain about here and there, but like an entire title, like I didn't put Galatasaray's title in under the microscope like that. And perhaps, like, what's a sad thing is, like, since we're on the receiving end of so much of it this year, I can only imagine that our fan base will kind of respond in kind going forward. And it's just going to be this tit for tat, every championship will get raised, have questions raised about it and kind of stuff. And it's just going to get worse and worse the more people kind of give attention to this kind of conspiracy nonsense. So I don't want to do too much of it, but I think we've covered that. Trying to think, what else should we review this season?
We should talk about the Bosman.
Yeah, well, we have to talk. That's more like a news segment now. I mean, in review, the one last piece I guess to mention, and it's just something sort of piggybacking on a note you made, but about Cenk Tosun. I think when most people view his contribution, they'll be like, "Oh, we wasted money. We didn't need him in the end because of the injury." But it's important to note that, like, the brace he scored in that one match, he had another goal, I think, as well. Like, again, we were talking about how every goal is important. So he
also gave the quote-unquote assist, so to speak, to Gezal's goal against Erzurum. Like, we shouldn't disparage his contribution. Like, Cenk was important this season.
And it was just a loan fee, so we got a bang for our buck, I guess. Obviously, we could have gotten more in the end, but that potato field that he injured himself on, I forget where that was, but that was
Erzurum.
It was Erzurum, yeah. That was unfortunate.
It was most definitely unfortunate.
But,
extremely
especially considering the Euro, how that's turned out for Turkey as a national side.
Yeah.
Not that he would have fixed our problems, though. I think that's a whole other conversation. I'll let you do that on fault. You can talk about that on Footy Turkey. Let's, I guess, our final topic, and it's a big one. Let's talk Sergen.
Yeah.
And I'll let you go. I know you're gonna get some traffic in your home soon.
I'm good. I'm good for another hour.
Oh wow. Okay.
Kids back from judo class at 6.
Nice.
It's 7. It's 5 now, so should be okay. Judo. But I wanted to start early enough, Sinan, because I know we tend to go long sometimes.
Doesn't hurt. No, it's fine. It's good. But so yeah, let's round up the episode with, I think, the conversation that needs to be had, and it's luckily the good news for us now. Sergen Yalchin, and I think before we talk about like the news item, obviously, I remember making a big deal about getting you to talk about your feelings when he came. Because he was your favorite player by far as a player, and I of course I love him too as an old fan, but I was especially, I know you had a real connection to him, and so I was excited to hear your take when he arrived as our manager. And so obviously now I'd like, before we talk about the contract and the news, how do you feel about your boy Sergen, huh? Talk about a club legend on multiple fronts.
I don't know if I've ever said this on the podcast, but I always feel like we are the most romantic club in Turkey. Mm-hmm. When I guess I was like 13 at the time, so 13, 14 at in our centenary year. It's like I was watching football, paying attention to football for a couple of years at that point. Like I got into football relatively late. I was in my early teens when I got into football, and my dad at the time, I remember, not that season, but like a couple seasons before, was talking to my dad, and my parents got divorced when I was 6, and so when my dad was settled and remarried and stuff, like obviously my mom and him worked out the visitation ride stuff, and in the beginning I just went one day, but then I ended up staying the night and staying the entire weekend with him, and I actually went every weekend to my dad, and one of the things that we did that we bonded over was watching football together, and that all started in the early, like in 1999 or in 2000 or something, when my dad worked in, nowadays you can just place your bets online, and you can place them in Unibet or BWin or whatever, all those things. They all have apps and you can do it all online. But back then, if you wanted to place a bet, you had to go to a bookie, exactly. And my dad worked in a bookie office. He was basically the guy typing in the match. Like if you wanted to place a bet, he'd have to type it in on his computer, and then Anyway, so in the weekend, I used to go with my dad to the matches, and in the shop where he worked, there used to be like these big flags. Like there was a Samsunspor flag and a Beşiktaş flag and a Galatasaray flag and a Fenerbahçe flag, Ankara Gücü. Like there were flags against the wall, like of all the clubs in Turkey, basically. Like all the popular clubs of where my dad lives, lots of people from Karadeniz, so there was a Samsun flag and a Trabzon flag and stuff like that. Anyway, so one day I asked him, like, what is that flag? Like right there, I remember vividly because it was a Samsunspor flag. And I asked him because Samsun sounds like Samson, and in Belgium we have this television show called Gert and Samson, Samson and Gert, which is basically about
Samson and Delilah, the hair guy.
No, Samson is basically just a dog. It's a puppet dog, and Gert is his master, basically. So
it's not the biblical tale.
No. It's for kids. It's a show for kids. Anyway, long story short, I thought it was a funny name. So I think one thing led to another, and then I asked, so what is that your team? Is that the team you support? And he said, no, I support Beşiktaş. And that's how we got to talking and blah and blah. And then, fast forward, my dad told me about, his favorite player, which was Sergen. At the time, Sergen was playing for, I think Galatasaray the first time or something, or Trabzon, I don't remember exactly. So he wasn't playing for Beşiktaş at the time. So at the time, like the guy at Beşiktaş was Şifo Mehmet, and I remember vividly me and him watching, my dad and myself watching Şifo's retirement on TV against Milan. We watched that game together and stuff like that. So my like recollection of Turkish football, of Beşiktaş in particular, goes back like a couple of years before Sergen came back, but the first season that I basically followed every single match except for one match I missed against Diyarbakırspor, and it's the one game we lost that season. It's the only game I missed that season.
Oh, you're the talisman. We needed.
Yeah, apparently I should have been there. We would have had a perfect season. But like that was my first real memory. So then of course Sergen came back, played a pivotal role throughout the season, was our only, I think it was our top scorer that season with 11 goals or something, and obviously he scored that now legendary goal against Galatasaray at a time that clinched the title.
Beginning of our podcast.
Yeah, so I mean, for me, like the whole story about Sergen coming back and the way in which he won the title for Beşiktaş, it was such a romantic story, and that's something I always loved about Beşiktaş. And then I think later on, if you go further, if you look at like Quaresma's return and his redemption story is a very romantic story as well. And then now I think Sergen's return to the club, and I was having a discussion with one of our mutual friends about it the other day, where he said, oh, Sergen, because then at the time it was still being said that Sergen was out. He said, Sergen's a coward, he's running away because he knows, now the pressure is on and blah and blah. And I told him, look, dude, that's bullshit. When he took the job, he was it was the worst time to take that job. Nobody wanted to touch it with a 10-foot pole. Nobody wanted that job. There was no money, absolutely no money. The team was in disarray. Players weren't getting paid. The team was just having a terrible season to begin with. Like, Sergen took the responsibility. He took the team from a situation where there was no hope, and he gave us hope again. And then he didn't just do that, but the next season he went and he did the unthinkable and won the double. With the circumstances that we've had, it's such an incredibly romantic story. And as the season was progressing, I went from not really having expectations to thinking, oh my god, I can't believe this is actually going to happen, to then thinking, oh my god, I can't believe it. we are gonna give this away. And I've never, like, you can have, like what Fenerbahce had, like, a couple of times already this century against Bursa, against Galatasaray, and then almost against Trabzon, but they managed to secure that one. I understand that it's traumatizing to lose the title in the last couple of weeks. But for me, that wouldn't have been the worst thing in the world, but the worst thing in the world would have been the way we did it, because of those injuries and because of how deserving we had been. I think you could make the argument in the 2010-2011 season, assuming there was no Chique, that both teams deserved to win the title. Both teams had a tremendous season, 82 points out of a potential 101, something like that. So an almost perfect season, dropping like 12 points. That's incredible. That's not 12 points. I'm miscounting here. It's like 19 or something. But whatever. An incredible amount, an incredible season. 82 points is fantastic in 34 games. So both teams were incredibly deserving, I think, there, assuming there was no match fixing. But if you look at this season, I don't think you can say that. I don't think you can say that Galatasaray were deserving. I don't think you can say Fenerbahce were deserving this season. The only team that deserved to win the title was Beşiktaş. And if we would have lost that title, it would have been a very painful thing, especially because of, for me personally, I thought the things Sergen did, the wonderful work he did, not just the belief and the confidence he instilled in the team, but also in the fan base, and getting the club back out of a very dark hole, basically, because he did that. And we talked about Abubakar, we talked about Gezal, we talked about Rosier, we talked about all these players that played a tremendous part this season, but the single most important factor and the big star, or should I say lightning rod of this team this season, was Sergen Yalçın. Because when the pressure was on, yes, Gezal stepped up big time. And we have to give him credit for that. From all the players, he went above and beyond. But Sergen took all the pressure away from the players as much as possible, as much as humanly possible. He took it and he all put that on his shoulders. And he basically functioned as a lightning rod to the team, to allow the team to stay as relaxed as possible. I'm not saying they didn't feel the pressure. Obviously they did. But Sergen did such a phenomenal job at that. And even, after we dropped points against Ankaragücü, after we lost against Fatih Karagümrük, after we lost against Galatasaray, after those games, any other team, I am 99.9% sure, in Turkey at least, would have crumbled.
Absolutely.
And we almost did, don't get me wrong, we almost did, but we didn't. And
I want to make a point quick.
Performance.
To piggyback off of what you're saying, I'm using piggyback a lot. I like that phrase lately.
Yeah, I know you like it.
But yeah, I definitely agree, and I think, one reason I was so bummed about potentially losing it in the end is that we had built that camaraderie and sort of team ethos, that had carried throughout the season, and it really started to feel like what might have been breaking it was the inevitable, was the natural end of the season and the kind of end of that team in a lot of ways, right? Because that when the season comes, a lot of guys are coming out, guys coming in, guys like Mensah. I think it was written on the wall that he was on his way out. That didn't quite pan out. So a number of guys, and then the transfer rumors start to swirl, right? Obviously about Abubakar and whatnot. Guys like Rosier and Gezal start to realize that even if they want to come back next year, there's no doubt that there's going to be some real interest from big clubs now, so that things are going to get complicated. So I feel like once all of that sort of secondary outside stuff starts to creep in, it's obviously going to affect the camaraderie. And so I was like, oh, that's not fair. It's not right. Like we did everything right. We built the team the right way, and it all comes apart because we don't have the the financial flex essentially to just be like, oh, don't we have nothing to worry about? We'll bring everyone back, you know. And I think Ahmet Nurçebi sort of tried that. He even said like, oh, I think we'll even bring back Mensa at one point, you know. And then, but like I think even a week or two before the season ended, there was some point where I think someone even officially recognized that we probably couldn't keep everyone. And
Yeah.
so like that was inevitable, but it was also so sad to sort of see happen and sort of so easily be able to point to that as a contributing factor, right?
Yeah, but that's our situation, and we have to accept that. That's just part of it, you know, and that's fine. We are in that situation, we know that, and we just need to try and keep the players that we need most. And I think, you know, obviously, I think our top priority should be Rachid Ghezal, but also Valentin Rosier, who was very important on the pitch, but also off the pitch for the camaraderie, for sure. I think he played a big part, and I think that he can bond with other players as well. Obviously, had a great connection with Aboubakar, and it definitely.
But Nkoudou will still be there.
And Nkoudou, and it definitely, I think, played a part as well for Rosier to be able to settle into the club as quick as he did, for Nkoudou and Aboubakar to be there. But now Rosier is settled, and if we can retain him, he is now part of this club's DNA. He's gonna be the big brother to the next guy that comes in, and he's gonna be the guy that's going to hopefully welcome those players. Like if we get new players.
I'm gonna say something controversial, and it's sort of to dispute what you just said. Very sort of though. You'll see. It's not really not that competitive. I think you could actually maybe make the argument that signing Rosier could be more important than Ghezal. And hear me out. Only insofar as, I mean, the Ghezal factor is huge, right? Like, he's clearly the more important player for the team, you know, for what he gives you in terms of goals and assists and all that. But I feel like in a way that's an easier thing to replace, right? It's so hard to find a good fullback.
It is.
In a lot of ways, it's the hardest position to fill.
Yeah.
And we lucked out so much with Ridvan, you know. But like, that right flank was a real concern. And I remember when news broke that we were getting Valentin Rosier, we were so desperate for someone at that position at the time that even though I had no idea who the guy was, and his profile looked kind of meh, you know, like third string at Sporting and maybe a bust and all that, I was still kind of like, oh, at least we have someone, you know, because that's how desperate we were. It was like that or like Nejip, you know. So like, I don't know. A part of me feels like if we lose Ghezal, which is probably more likely now, because you know you got Lyon coming for him and all these rumors of big clubs swirling.
I don't know about that. Are they? What he's continuing.
Marseille who's looking at Rosier, isn't it?
Yeah, Marseille supposedly interested in Rosier, and then the same club, Al Nassr, I guess, was interested in Ghezal, but Ghezal wasn't really interested in going to what country is Al Nassr? Is that Saudi Arabia, I think? So he wasn't interested in that. So I mean, I think the difference that I think is like, okay, Ghezal just turned 29. And Rosier is 24. I think Rosier still has a lot of ambition left in his career. I think he still has this. He even outed it. I think he said something about the Bundesliga kind of being the league he'd like to ultimately end up in. Rosier definitely still has aspirations. He wants to become a French international. And I think that in his mind, maybe another year of Besiktas playing in the Champions League and then making that next move is very much something that he's thinking of. But Ghezal, on the other hand, I think he's done all that. He's gone to Italy. He's gone to England. He's done the big leagues. And it didn't pan out, really. But what he hasn't done yet is he did that this season, but beat the man. Because he was never the man at Lyon. He was never the man at Monaco.
Yeah.
But the Besiktas this past season, he grew into that. And I think he's never I mean, he obviously felt well at Lyon and stuff and at Monaco, but I think that for him the most important thing is feeling good and at ease and important and appreciated at a club. And I think that's also why he's a lot more likely to turn away other clubs, because he knows already from his personal experience how difficult it is to find a club where you feel good and where you feel appreciated and where you can get the best out of yourself. He's at a different stage in his career.
Yeah. Let me actually quickly recover. Let me just fix what I said briefly. Insofar as I think that Rosier is the harder one to replace, but I don't think I phrased it well to say that he's the more important, obviously, because clearly, if you can lock down a Ghazal, you've answered many of the questions that we have about our offense next season. Because it doesn't. If you've got Ghazal locked in there, I feel like we can feel confident that we probably don't even need the best striker in the world, as long as it's someone who can get his head on a few crosses like Laren on occasion. It puts less pressure on other parts of the front office to replace other things we need. But so I just meant, I guess, in terms of just our ability to actually replace the two of them. I think it might be harder to replace Rosier, but not that it would be more important for us to re-sign Rosier over Ghazal. In fact, I think you could probably say the opposite, right? There's maybe not a more important player in Turkey right now.
Yeah, I mean,
especially if he stays.
It's about importance, so to speak. I think Ghazal is the number one priority. But if you're looking at sensibility of business, I think then you're going to look towards Rosier, because if you can sign Rosier for under 5 million euros, he's the type of player you can definitely sell for a nice profit if he continues to perform. And if he puts on a good show in the Champions League as well, he's the type of player that you can actually go on and sell for a profit. Whereas I think Rachid Ghazal, buying him, you're not buying him to sell, you're buying him to be your star. Whereas with Rosier, you're buying him to be a key player, but you're also buying him to potentially move him on in his career and get a decent change of get some money in exchange for that and a nice profit. So it's a different thing, really. But I think both players are important, and I really hope that we can retain either of them. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot to do for Beşiktaş this summer. But the most important thing is what we already finally did, and that's extend with Sergen for another year. So he's staying, and it was...
That actually is definitionally the most important move, I think, right? That's where it all starts.
That's the domino effect, hopefully. Hopefully this sets things in motions now, where, finally we've agreed terms with Sergen. He's staying for at least one more year. And then hopefully, the ball starts rolling and Ghazal and Rosier come, and we'll have to find a new striker because Aboubakar's left us already. I guess you already spoke about that in the past episode.
No, we haven't.
You haven't?
Our last bit of the preview for the window, and we were still we'll get Aboubakar first, it looks like. I don't know why the rumors pointed to that, but that was not true. So again, thank you, Kaan, for stopping by, and of course we will tune in again next week with the thrilling conclusion of our conversation. So stay tuned for that. But next, I'm passing the mic again over to our friend Evran, who is reporting on the latest transfers. So yeah, without any delay, let me just move things swiftly along.
Right, so quick little transfer update. So no official moves have been made. There's not really any new names, but some of the transfers have progressed a little bit. Salih Chan should be announced this weekend. They said he's arriving in Istanbul on Friday and taking his medical on Saturday. So you assume when all that happens, they'll be officially announced. But, you know, I won't say it's 100% done. I won't say 99%. Salih Chance is done. Agent Joseph continues. He's been spending a lot of time with Alex Teixeira. He posted a picture with Alex, and he did a little eagle pose with his one hand. He also was pictured with Fernando, which is a defensive midfielder. Used to play for Shakhtar. Now in China. He still has 1 year left on his contract, so he's not a free agent. But both players are linked to Besiktas. Alex Teixeira and Joseph also played in like a pickup game in Brazil. They're spending time together. So, you know, Agent Joseph's working hard, working overtime. Sergen wants Alex Teixeira. They said negotiations have begun. Just come down to money. The newer, more serious one, I guess it was mentioned before, Diego Costa, is there's been progress. Besiktas made a new offer, 5 million euros over 2 years, and Sergen said yes, that he wants it, or he approves of Diego Costa. So the club is working on that. They're also working on Gezal. They're gonna, try to, like, this coming is around this weekend. I think they're meeting with his agent to try to agree a personal details with the player before trying to negotiate with Leicester. Still no news on Rosier officially. Unfortunately, Kenan, nothing new. So nothing crazy, but I think we're getting there. So hopefully this is quick enough for you guys. But quick recap: Salih Chance is basically done. Alex Teixeira and Diego Costa are free agents that were pretty decently in negotiations with, while Fernando has it's gonna be harder. His Chinese contract might be hard, but if he doesn't get paid there, which is a possibility, that's the other thing. But that's a little bit more of a long shot. So, yep, that's about it.
And that about does it. So again, thank you so much, Evran. Thank you, Kaan. We'll be back soon. Again, I'll get you guys the opportunity to hear the end of our conversation. Things get even more interesting, if you'll believe it. It was a great time, obviously, reconnecting with Kaan. And thanks again, Evran, for the news update. Last of all, I have to say, follow us on Twitter, of course, at Eagles_podcast. Follow myself, at Sir_Rights_a lot. Follow Kaan at Razerian, Razzerian. And follow us on Instagram, Black Eagles Podcast, one word. Without forgetting, though, I should also mention, let's go Besiktas! I will briefly just say that the latest rumor is that we have concluded the transfer of NEC Megan's Elias Tavshan, I'm not sure, a Dutch Turkish Dutch, Turkish Dutch. Whatever his name is, it will be joining us, it sounds like. So hopefully we'll have some more info about him on the next episode. And again, that'll be up to Evran. And again, I don't even know if that rumor is real, but sounding more likely than not at this point. So yeah, Elias, welcome aboard, sir. Peace out, everyone. See you next time.
Besiktas International hopes you enjoyed this program.